members who will go to the board for the election for next year. And I think he's also been trying to coordinate with the schools a little bit closer. I think in the past, he's just been using distribution lists that have been organized by the community. But I think this year he is now going to be working a little bit closer with the schools. So I'm expecting that we're going to actually have quite a few people who are going to be running for a position on the Technology Advisory Committee. And just as a reminder for those who are not aware of it or don't remember, the election that occurs is the last board meeting in May. So what I said was we really needed to have a deadline of, I think it's the 23rd of April. So that would give me roughly a week to put together the board agenda item, and then also to vet the candidates and provide information to the board as they so they can evaluate the candidates as well. So gives me literally 1 week to get all that pulled together.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Lucas? All right, so moving forward to new business. Great, we're moving right along, that'd be great. Our Infinite Campus Gradebook presentation. Met either of you guys? If you want to introduce Ashton and Ryan, if you guys want to give a quick introduction of yourselves, and then we can move forward with the presentation.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll start off, Ryan. My name's Ashton Ferris. I've been with Infinite Campus. It's kind of scary for me to say this, but for about 14 years now. I'm over here in Phoenix, and Ryan is joining us in Minnesota, so it's a little later Ryan's time. So Ryan's going to be kind of doing the demonstration today. I don't want to steal too much of his thunder. In Lucas, we thought, and just a little input from you real quick, just kind of what's available in Infinite Campus to teachers with a focus on the gradebook, right? Is that pretty much what we want to do? Perfect.
Yep.
And let him kind of show you what Infinite Campus has to offer. The good news is you already own it. So it's just a decision of whether or not to use this versus School Loop or other things. So it's no cost to use it. It's already being paid for. So Ryan, I'll let you introduce yourself and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashton. And thank you everybody for having us here. Sorry, I'm just turning on screen share. I've not used Google Meet before, so it's always a little adventure to learn new things here. So it looks like I'm presenting. Can you confirm that you can see my screen here?
Yep.
Got a nice.
Yep,
I went above and
your
beyond here,
screen.
Ashton. I made a nice little PowerPoint, a one-slide PowerPoint here. I've been with campus for 7 years. Prior to working at Infinite Campus, I was a teacher in a juvenile detention center, and we used Infinite Campus in that detention center. So I was there for about 5 years, then switched over to campus where I started as a trainer, and then about 4 years ago switched to an application specialist. I'm a recent father, so there's my son Luke. Well, he's 16 months already, so I mean I still have bags under my eyes, you can see here. Hopefully, I've been told those never go away, but maybe someday they will. Maybe someday they will. I'm still crossing my fingers. But enough about me. I want to get into the product. I want to show you exactly what you have with the Infinite Campus Gradebook, and in fact the teacher portion of Infinite Campus. And this is one of my favorite things to show, just because I used to use it on a daily basis. So I'm going to sign in as a teacher now, and we'll go over navigation first. One of the nicest things about our product is it's very robust for our teachers. So you can see in my main menu here, we have it broken down for specific information that teachers might be looking for. So if we go into, say, student information, this is where we can see if they're on an academic plan or anything like that. But we're going to primarily spend time in instruction today. And one of the things we're going to spend the most time on to start with is the control center. But you'll see that they can easily navigate throughout their tools. And one of the really nice things is when they narrow it down to a specific tool, say the control center here, there's a nice little favorite star up here, and that actually drops it into its own menu right here. So teachers can build their own favorites. I like this because I know this is how I would have used the product. This feature is relatively new. It didn't actually exist when I was still in the classroom. So when they add things to their favorites, they can build their workflow for their entire school day. They can edit it, move it around, however they want to use it most. There's also going to be the most recent tools. This includes the 10 most recent tools they were using in Infinite Campus. So it makes finding those pages they were at very quick and easy to do so. Last but not least, they can also just do a search at the very top. And what you'll notice is not only does it search for a tool, it also searches for any students that they might interact with on the day that has that same name. Now, I don't have any students in my classroom that are name control. That's why I didn't find any there. So that's basic navigation, and that's just designed for teachers to be quick and efficient in the gradebook. Now, when we're in the control center, what we're going to see here is for today, the specific school we're assigned to, all of the courses I'm scheduled to teach. We're going to primarily focus on English 11, section 15 of it right here, which we can see right there. But we'll see all of those classes throughout the day. We give teachers the ability to change the little symbol there, change colors, just to help them distinguish between classes. Just a nice little piece of customization there. We have our daily tasks right below. The first being attendance, which I understand teachers are using Infinite Campus for right now. But let's take a look at it, and let's actually minimize that menu and go into our attendance menu. One thing I like to show here is that if a teacher is using a tablet, say right now I have my browser set on iPad mode, it's going to show full functionality. If I change it down to iPhone, you'll see that it is in responsive design. So no matter what device they may be using, they will have full functionality. When I was in the classroom, they gave us iPads and we all used those to take attendance. Just looking through this though, what we're noticing at the very top is we have developed what we call blended learning, but that's a fancy term for navigating COVID-19 schooling, meaning some kids are in person and some students are distance-based learning. At the very top, we're going to see all of those students that are physically in the classroom right now, with the exception of Jana. She's home ill per a parent call. This has been marked by the office, so I as a teacher actually can't change that. If Jana were to stroll into my classroom, I'd have to send her to the attendance office and have them clear it up. So we can never override what our attendance office has set for us. But going down, what's nice, you'll see if Nada was maybe absent today, if I mark her absent, I can then leave a comment for her as well. Same thing goes for tardy. If they're tardy, we can leave a comment, and the attendance office is going to be able to see those comments that we leave for them to give them a little heads up about what's going on in that student's attendance today. I mentioned the physically present students. As I go down, here's where I have all of my kids joining me virtually today. Now we can see that Dylan has actually checked in and participated today. This is available through what we call Campus Student. It's a application that's included with Infinite Campus that students can download on their phone, Android or Apple Store, or they can actually use a desktop or laptop computer. And it's just a portal that includes all of their grades, all of their coursework, things of that nature. And again, similar to this, it's something you already have, but I don't know if you're fully utilizing that yet or not, but that might be the next step. So my share menu here is preventing me from clicking save, so I'm going to exit out of mobile mode. But once we've done with attendance, one thing I forgot to mention is I can actually mark a student participating here if they haven't checked in yet either. But as soon as I save that, what you'll notice is that teacher is going to get a little notification, a little green checkbox, letting them know that they have completed attendance for this period. So again, the tools are designed to be very intuitive for our teachers. Now, there's some other important information here as well. We can see that we have assignments waiting to be scored. We have 20 students that have turned things in that we haven't scored yet. And we could click on this and it would take us to the gradebook, but we'll navigate there in just a second. If we had any course discussions, they would show up here, and we'll look at those in just a minute as well when we go into the gradebook. Last but not least, we also have the opportunity for students to ask teachers questions. We can see that we've got a question here. If we open that up, we can see that Dylan is unable to find the Zoom link for today. So I could open that up and I could just simply copy and paste that and send that back to that student. He would then have that Zoom link. He would be able to join my digital session if we're offering it through Zoom or whatever mobile platform digital platform you might be using to teach lessons during today's course. I'm actually not going to send that right now, but that's how we can do it. Students are limited to one question at a time. They can't bombard students or teachers and ask them 100 questions and just fill up their inbox. Also, all of the conversation, all of the correspondence between teacher and student is logged. So if we ever need to go back and check that out, that's certainly stored in the database. So the control center is really designed for teachers to use in that first 2 to 5 minutes of class. We know how important it is to get accurate attendance taken and then get right into the lesson plan, because that's how we set the tone for the day. So that's why the control center is designed to be quick hitting and easy for teachers. So we're going to move right down my favorites menu today. We're going to go into the gradebook next. And I'll continue to hide this just so that we can have maximum viewing angle here. So what we are going to see on the screen on the very left-hand side are going to be all of my students that are rostered into this class actively. If any student was at one point in time in this classroom and had left, their name would appear in red. That's an option that I've elected to hide those students right now, but that's a teacher's option. They can always turn that back on. If we want to know a little bit more information about Dylan, we can open up that student view panel there, and we're going to get some very important information here. His date of birth, student ID number, but more importantly, the last time he's logged into the campus portal, and also the last time his parents have logged into the campus portal. So we know how active those parents are in that student's academic career. Same thing goes for the student. On the right-hand side, we are seeing all of that information about the student's performance against his colleagues in this class. This is a box and whiskers diagram. You'll see that there's actually a little question mark arrow that explains everything your teachers could want to know about box and whiskers diagram there, but essentially it's just comparing Dylan's progress towards those students that are also in his class. If we're having a student-teacher conference, I can call Dylan up to my desk. I can hide every other student. I can go over some notes I have with him, give him some suggestions, send him back to his desk, and then we'll call up Jana and we'll do the same thing. So these tools are designed to be used in that mentality. We'll go back to showing all students and hiding those. If I want to know more information about Dylan, maybe I need to call home, maybe I need to email home. You'll notice that all I did was click on his name on the left-hand side, and a flyout menu comes over, and we get all of that household information about Dylan. And that's what's great about Infinite Campus. Because you're using it for your student information system, teachers don't have to type all of this stuff in there. It's already there because it's your primary school database. So we've got, not only do we have his email, we've got his parent contact information as well down below. So if we need to send home an email or call home, all of that's going to be at our fingertips. It's going to be very easy for them to do. We can also print this out just for ease of getting hold of parents or just knowing household information. So when I drill down and discuss a little bit more about what's going on in the gradebook, what we'll see across the top here are going to be all of those assignments that are currently in term 3, or quarter 3 in this case. I'm a quarter-based school here, in this section of English 11. I can navigate between all of my other courses just through that drop-down menu. And this is just our term grade grading task. Whatever grading tasks you have set up, they'll also be there, but this is where we're tracking our in-progress grades. So to the right of our student name, this is what we call a Sparkline Graph, and it's really just an at-a-glance indicator. This is showing me how my student is doing over the course of the term without drilling down for more information. What's great about this is this assignment here has yet to be scored because it's due today. Let's say that Dylan got a 0 on this. I could enter that score in, and you'll notice that his graph went all the way to the bottom. Now let's say in his research paper, Dylan got 100. You'll see that it goes all the way to the top. So as a busy teacher, I can look through my entire class and I can look for trending data, and I can reach out to students that maybe need a little bit of assistance, or maybe I just need to check in with them and see what's going on. I noticed their performance has been going down. I want to check in and see if everything's going all right. Maybe we can help them out. Maybe they can come into an after school session, something like that, so I can work with them. So that's the Sparkline Graph, but let's drill down into a little bit more of our learning opportunities that exist. One of the biggest questions we always get is, how do we add an assignment in here? There's an add button right at the top of the screen here, and when I open this up, this is where I'm going to title my assignment. I'm going to give it a nice little summary. And what's great about the summary, and we'll just call this one example for now, the summary is what students will see, if the students and parents will see if they access this through the portal. we'll just continue with my super creative. This is an example summary down here, but you'll see that it's what we call it, what you see is what you get editor or WYSIWYG editor, and they can also add web URLs, photos, those types of things. They can be embedded directly in to this assignment or this lesson here. We also set our due date, when we're going to assign this, when we're going to collect it. If we want to assign it to all of the class or all of the students in the class, that will be the default. If we have some students that shouldn't be assessed this assignment, we can always pick from the list of students. Maybe Jonna doesn't need this assignment. She's already displayed mastery, although her grade is an F, probably the wrong student to pick for that example. But you can see that we can exclude students from the lesson that maybe have already showed mastery. We can also individualize education by changing the assign date and changing the due date. So if a student maybe has accommodations from a PLP or an IEP that they get extra time on assignments, we can certainly accommodate that directly through the gradebook right here. So we'll go back to this lesson. There's also some rich content down here as well. We can actually add a file. Maybe it's a Word document, maybe it's a photo, whatever the case may be, we can add that directly to the assignment. There's also a Google Drive integration. So if you have Google Drive at your school, we can add content directly from our Google Drive. We also have a whole host of learning tools, and maybe we just want some notes to go there as well. Down below, we have built-in functionality. If we want to introduce a discussion, a quiz, or a file submission, and I have one of those set up, we can do that directly through this. We also can preview what the assignment's going to look like to our students before we ever pass it out. And again, we'll look at this for all of or for these 3 types of assignments, but I did just like to show you how easy it is for teachers to add a new assignment. This little arrow on the left-hand side will actually show all of the content in this course. And what's great about this is I can actually make a resource folder available to my students. In this case, I've got English 11 student resources. This is where I house things such as a field trip permission slip and even my syllabus and schedule for that course. What's nice about this is students can access this at any time. And you'll see that right now, I have turned it visible to my class. I can also hide it. If it's before the term has started for this course, I can hide it and no student will see it, and we'll go from it that way. But all of that is available directly through the assignment editor built into the teacher controls in Infinite Campus. So we've got a few things going on here as far as assignments goes. The first is going to be a quick assessment. Now, when I open this up, this is a more built out lesson plan. This is where we have some things such as Outlander. Now, I have to admit, my wife became very obsessed with the show. I tried to watch it, but I couldn't get into it. But, I made this just in honor of her there. So you'll see that I've actually embedded a YouTube video here, and I've actually set up a quiz down below. Students can watch this directly through whatever device they're accessing this assignment from. Now, if I go down to this quiz, I would actually view it, but maybe I want to see how a student actually views this assignment. So if I go to my preview mode, I'm going to have a few options here. I can preview it as a teacher, a student, or even a parent. But we're going to access this directly as a student. So this is exactly what my students will see when they access it. You'll see I can click on the YouTube video. It'll play it right there for me. Not going to subject you to that. But as I go into the assessment, you'll see that we can add content. We can have multiple choice questions. We can have true and false. And we'll just kind of go through this really quickly. It's only 3 questions. And I'm just going to click the answers really quickly. I think I got a few wrong there. As soon as they submit this, it is going to correct it, and it's going to give them the correct answer. What's also nice for the teachers is it's going to enter that score into the gradebook for them automatically. So as soon as those students are completing their work, it's going to put it into the gradebook for them. So we looked at that one through preview mode. That's the only unfortunate thing right now is it's not going to enter in that score yet. However, as a teacher, we can expand that assignment and we can see which students have started that assessment and where they're at with it. We can view their in progress if they haven't quite submitted it yet. You'll also notice that we let teachers know if a student has an attendance mark on the day that was assigned. So we know on the day they got this quick assessment that Dylan was actually on a college visit. So that's just some good heads up information. The next thing we're going to look at is our Google Drive integration. This is a research paper assignment, and it's due tomorrow. But we've got a few students that have already turned it in. When I expand it out, you'll see that we can evaluate some work here. Dylan also left us a comment, so let's see what he said there. You'll see that it automatically signed me into my Google Drive. Dylan wants an A+, awesome. Down below, we have his body of evidence here. So we're going to open up this person essay. And what we're seeing here is his actual evidence, or his body of evidence that he typed up in the Google Word editor. And as a teacher, I can turn on edit mode and I can actually leave a comment, as I did here. But on the right-hand side, I have what we call a scoring rubric that outlines what I'm looking for in this assignment, and I can actually correct it as I'm reading the essay on the left-hand side. So as I go down, I have all the criteria I'm judging this assignment on, and as I'm clicking those areas of criteria, or where he scored in that, it's actually tallying that up for me. I can leave a comment down below, and as soon as I save that, it's going to update the gradebook for me. I can then move on to my next student, Jana, and now her essay has loaded for me. Now, if you're not using Google Drive, or maybe some students haven't set up a Google Drive account, we have a built-in campus editor, and this next student, Nada, used that. We do lose some of the functionality, such as the ability to edit that essay, but the student can still digitally complete that essay and submit it to our teachers, and they're still going to have that same medium to correct that body of evidence, give them a score, and submit it, and they are on their way. So that is Google Drive integration. That's how teachers can look at that. The last thing I want to show you is our built-in threaded discussion module. So we'll go into this one right here. What we're going to see at the top as soon as this loads is the question I asked as a teacher. Just through creating a new assignment, I asked them where they would travel to in time if they could do anything. Down below, we can see Dylan's entry into that. It's going to highlight it in blue for me, and that's the student I'm working on. I can see that at the very top. Now, as I'm scrolling down, I can see that students have replied to him, and he's actually replied to a couple students as well if we scroll down long enough. We'll go ahead and give him a 20 out of 20, and we'll move on to our next student here. And that is going to be Jana, and we're going to see that her replies and her contributions are going to be highlighted as well. So we can always keep things straight. If there was something inappropriate, students can flag it, and that will actually give the teacher a notification letting them know there's something they need to review. At that point in time, they can remove it or remove the flag if it wasn't inappropriate after all. So those are threaded discussion modules. They can have as many of those as they want going on at the same time. What else is nice is on any given assignment, we can perform what's known as a score analysis. When we look at a score analysis, this allows me to view graphically the breakdown of the scores for any assignment. So I can see my students that did exceptionally well, and I can also see my students that didn't do that hot on this assignment. And holding in control, it allows me to select both cohorts here. And down below, I can see graphically which students they were. Going down even further, I get a breakdown of question to question. So for professional review, I as a teacher know which questions students found confusing and which questions students did really well on. So that can always lead me to maybe reinvent my curriculum, or maybe I need to exempt this quiz. It was very confusing. I didn't do a great job explaining it. Maybe we need to revisit some lesson plan. So it gives teachers the feedback that they don't always get if they're just asking students. Some other nice functionality here is from this, I can actually create a student group. So maybe we want like a peer tutor group. If I could spell, that would help. And what this allows me to do, if I were to create this group, anytime I create an assignment, I can assign it to only students in that group. So only students in the peer tutor group are going to get an upcoming assignment. And I can have as many groups as I want. I can create them other ways as well, but that's just a quick, easy way to do it for teachers. So I know there's a lot of information that's coming your way, but I do want to show you just one more thing, as I think some teachers or some schools may be using Google Classroom. Now, if I am just making that up, I apologize, but you'll see that we also integrate with Google Classroom. Up at the top, I've got some uncategorized assignments that are waiting to be imported into the Infinite Campus Gradebook. When I open these up, I see that I've got my assignments from Google Classroom. Now, in actual practice, these would be the actual assignment names. However, just for sake of example, I called them assignment from Google Classroom. Again, one of the most original guys or most creative guys you know probably. But anyways, before I can import them, I need to align them to my gradebook. So I pick the grading task they're going to align to, which is the term grade, and then the category. Now, categories are completely up to the district how you want to control those. You can either set up grading categories for all of your courses, for some of your courses, for none of your courses. If you elect to do none of your courses, then teachers are going to be able to create their own categories and assign weights to those categories that they create. So there's a lot of options. The product's flexible enough to allow any combination of those three options that I listed. But as soon as I save this, you'll notice that I only elected to import one, but that assignment's going to automatically come into the campus gradebook. And what's great about that is now we don't need to do duplicate entry. So if your teachers are doing that right now and it's leading to duplicate entry, this will do away with that. And that will be great because then when you print report cards out of Infinite Campus, you won't have to worry about it because those assignments will come over. If that score updates in Google Classroom, the new score will come over as well. So I did just want to show that. And you can also automate that process. There's non-campus assignment defaults right here, which allows you to say, hey, anytime there's a Google Classroom assignment waiting, I just want to go to the term grade coursework category. And then they won't even see that warning. It'll just automatically come in for them. So again, I know that's a lot of information really quickly, but I did just want to show you the gradebook. I have a few other really nice features I'm going to show you, and then we'll take some time for question and answer here. So we're going to move into the progress monitor. For any of your schools that are using standards-based grading, this is going to be those teachers' favorite tool. Across the top, we are seeing all of the standards that we are collecting during this term in this class. And you can see we've got a bunch of them. We got 9 here. We also have a roll-up standard, meaning ELA 11 is made up of ELA 11A and 11B. So we can handle roll-up standards, and this is what it looks like in the product. What you're seeing down below an individual standard, ELA 1, for example, is our rubric score. In my demo site, we are using a 43210. You might be using an ENSU or any different combination, but the product will just display what rubric is actually being used. In the upper right-hand corner, we're seeing that this score of 3 is being determined from 6 assignments. If I want to know what 6 assignments those are, I can click on that score and I can see those assignments, and I can also assign a different score using that rubric if I need to. So it's very easy to find that information. Everything is right under our nose there. But another nice feature, because Infinite Campus is a single longitudinal database, we can actually pull up a portfolio for a student. This student has been assessed at ELA 1 standard at different times through his academic career. Starting in 8th grade, 6200 language arts A, we can see that he earned a 1. In English 9, he also earned a 1. And if I want to know a little bit more about, hey, what went into that score, I can open up our graph and we can see all of the assignments that contributed to that score, even on a graph, and we can see those posted scores as well. Easy to print these out, easy to pull up with the student. But what's nice about that is we can see where our students came from. We can see what exercises worked well in the past so that we can get them where they need to go. It just gives us as a teacher, a great frame of reference so I can meet the needs of my students individually using the portfolio here and just understand a little bit more about my students. Now, we could spend probably even an hour just on the screen here, but I did just want to show you really quickly for those standards-based school that they still have full functionality. We can add new assignments just as we did in the other gradebook as well. So that is the progress monitor. That is what it's designed to do. Moving right on down, we're going to talk about the roster. The roster allows teachers to see all of the students that they interact with on a day-to-day basis. By default, we're always going to have that same course we had in the gradebook selected. So we're looking at 3300 English 11 section 15. Down below, we're going to see our students, and I can zoom in a little bit. I realize Dylan's picture is probably pretty tiny, but moving left to right, we can see all of their, their student information there, their date of birth, and any flags we may be tracking. And your district can create flags for whatever you want to track in the system. We can see that Dylan's in the National Honor Society. He's a peer tutor. He's on the honors graduation program. And he's one of those students that is going to be an always virtual student in our distance-based learning program. To the right, we also see that he's got some health conditions and instructions that go along with them. So when we open that up, we can see he has ADHD and he sees the nurse for medication. He also has an allergy for which he carries an EpiPen for. So we have all of that very important, potentially life-saving information available to those teachers directly through the roster. Also, IEPs could show up here. So could PLPs such as 504 or gifted and talented plans. And teachers can actually click on those and open those. You'll see that we've got an enrichment plan for Dylan here. This is where we would list accommodations, goals, and all of that household information for that parent. To the right, you can see we also have some stray documents made available to our teachers as well. We can see he's got an academic success plan. This again, it might be just a breakout of that enrichment PLP plan, or it might be something completely different that he worked on with a counselor. These can actually be created by your district as well, whatever plans you want. This just gives our teacher a little bit of insight into what Dylan's doing to, get better grades in my class, and, identified some goals that I want to make sure that we're working with here. So those are all available through the roster. And going down, you can also see that another student, Royce, is actually on an RTI, or response to intervention plan. And when we open this up, we can see that he is on a reading 2 plan here, and we are an intervention deliverer for this student. So we can actually open our graph and see this student's performance over time. The orange line here is his goal line, his planned goal line, and we can see the green line is how he's recently been trending. So he's been exceeding the goal. So we would expect that this would hopefully lead to an improvement in scores, being it is a reading plan in our English class. So if he was having comprehension issues, hopefully this intervention helped him bump up those scores. So this is available for many different interventions within the system. It's just a really nice piece of functionality for our teachers to actually see directly in the roster there. So let me zoom out a little bit there so I can close that. Could have just scrolled down, I guess. But again, that's what the roster is designed to be, that nice piece of information for all of our teachers. They can also click on that student name, just another way to access that student information if they're looking at this and they want to reach home. So that's the roster. We're going to go into the message center before we talk about the planner. The Message Center is built into Campus and allows teachers to send out a portal inbox or an email message to either my students or their parents or their parents. At the top, we elect, what type of message are we sending out? And I actually have a template set up for my digital classroom session because we're doing it so frequently. I set up a template here and we have it automatically set up to go to their inbox and email. I can pick when it's going to be sent and where the reply to email is. I could add an attachment if I needed to. But down here, here's where I type the actual body to that message. You can see that we can perform a mail merge here. So it's actually going to pull in that student's first name. And I've just got my Zoom link for them down below here. They can access it directly from this. As we go through the steps, I can be very granular with which class is going to get this message. That same section we've been dealing with all day, it's going to actually go to my students and not those student messaging contacts. When I go to the next screen, I should see my actual students here. You'll see that 18 students are going to get it through their process inbox. If I want to see what those students are or what that message looks like, I can open it up and I can preview this here. And you see that it popped his name in there for me. And we've got that, what that message is going to look like. And if I don't want to send it to Dylan, maybe I don't want him to join me today, I can take it away from him there and save it. But teachers have that opportunity and they can be used for whatever type of messages they maybe want to send out. Maybe they want to send out a homework update saying, hey, here's what's been assigned recently. Or maybe they just want to send out a reminder. Anything of that they can set up and create templates for. There's no limit to how many messages they can send out. And there's also going to be a sent message log for the admin, so they can always keep up to date with what teachers are sending out to their students if they need to do that. We're going to go into the planner here. And the planner is a very nice piece of functionality here for teachers pacing. They're going to see all of their courses down below. So the one we're primarily focusing on English 11, section 15, we can see all of those assignments that we've created here. Now, it corresponds to the day in the week. We can see that the research paper is originally due tomorrow, but maybe my students presented the case to me, said they need one more day. I can easily just extend that deadline out. Now it's not due until Wednesday. Maybe the time travel discussion I was going to get to today, but I actually am going to just start it tomorrow. I can just maneuver it around, and it's going to change the assign dates and the due dates for me. It's not going to affect any student that already participated in that discussion. That'll stay there. It's just going to change those dates around so that those students can have a better opportunity to complete those assignments. You can also see I have another area to deliver an intervention there through an RTI plan. I can also create a new assignment directly here, similar to how I could in the gradebook. When I go to other curriculum at the top, I can add other teachers to my watch list here, and I can see what they're doing. For example, I can see that Abby Learn is working on the Crucible right now. And maybe that's of interest to me because that's where I wanted to go next. I haven't taught that lesson yet. I can actually open up this teacher's lesson plan here, and I can see everything that they've created for the Crucible, which you can see is quite extensive. We've got folders, we've got some resources here. I can drill down as far as I want. I can see that in day one, they're going to be introducing vocabulary to them. I can go back through the quick navigation at the top and I can say, yeah, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want in my section of English 11 right here, section 15. And I can drop it into, copy that directly into my curriculum as well. This also opens the door for using like a professional learning community model. Teachers can work on content. I know that when I was still teaching, we were in discipline. So me and the other social studies teachers would create content and then share it through the planner and see how it worked across different students while I was still teaching. So that opens the window to that. And that's primarily, what the planner is for. It's for not only organizing themselves, but also working as a community of educators to better reach our students. My schedule just shows them graphically when those courses meet through the day so they can find common planning periods if they need to, and they can load those other schedules below here, and they're going to see all of those other teachers' schedules that they have opened up. And again, I'm giving you a high-level overview in lieu of spending a couple hours here in the gradebook. I know that Monday night is probably the night you want to do all that, but I thought I would spare you some of that tonight. So the things I have down below are a couple of reports, but I also wanted to show you the seating chart module as well. We'll get to those reports in just a second. I like showing the seating charts because for teachers, it's just something that they want access to right here. We can create a brand new one for any of the sections I teach, or I can open up my English 11 one that I have created already. What's really nice about this, especially when we're entering back to having students physically in our building, we can actually space these students out. So we're making sure we're following distancing guidelines here. We can just leave empty desks there. We can move those around so that we're following all those guidelines and we're keeping our students safe. Same thing goes for our faculty. We want to make sure that they're safe as well. The program can clear out students and it can place them for us. You'll see that it drops them all in the available selection there. If I place them, then I have a few options alphabetically or just random. So let's see what it gives me there. Of course, we didn't want students in those seats, so we might just have to distance those out. And you'll see that clicking on a student's name actually gives me their student information as well. So it's just really easy to use, and I find it kind of fun. I don't know why, but that's their seating chart tool, and they can make as many of those as they want. They can also, print these out for substitutes if they're going to be gone for the day, so that not only does that substitute have names, but they have pictures as well as a former substitute. I can't tell you how many times I wished I had those pictures. As we go down, just a couple of reports I want to touch on, and then we'll move on to the question and answer part. The first is going to be the blank spreadsheet. And the reason I show these is just so you know, teachers have reporting capabilities directly in the product as well. They don't need to navigate elsewhere. They don't need to use Microsoft Excel to do it. This blank spreadsheet, I always used it to track participation in my class. You'll see I get all my students, and I could actually have the report put the days of the week across the top, and I could just mark it off there. Last but not least, I'll show you the roster report. this is where we, for the first day of school, when I'm getting to put names with faces, I can elect all of that student information I want to see on a report and generate it. It'll take just a second here because it's pulling all of that information, but then I'll have a nice report here where I get all of that student information and all of that parent contact information that we have on file as well. So again, I want to thank you for allowing us to present to you. We'll be here if there's any questions, but Lucas, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to chime in, or Ashton as well, but I'm happy to, kind of turn the floor back over to you guys.
Yeah, one quick thing, I saw there was a request to see what the parent or a student would see, particularly parents.
Sorry, particularly parents? Absolutely, I'm more than happy to show you that. I didn't build that in because I didn't know if that was of concern, but here I'm signing into the parent portal, and I'll give you just a real quick overview of it. I'm going to navigate to my Today screen. On the upper right, this is the student I have selected. So I have multiple students within this district. As long as I have permission to see their information, I'm going to be able to change between them from a single sign-on. Stella, for example, is in the elementary school, she's in 5th grade, but I can just change at the drop of a hat here. But Dylan's the one we were primarily focusing on. Here's where that student checks in. We can turn it on for parents to check them in, or just have it available to the students themselves. That's the district option. I just leave it on so I can show it if we're only going in here. Now, for a parent, we are going to see all of that schedule for that student here. So we know exactly where they are and when they're going to be there. For that particular class, English 11, I can drill down a little bit further. We get that teacher information. We can see grades for my student, how they're performing in that class, and we can drill down further. So this is where I need to navigate to term 3 here. This is where I can go to that coursework and I can actually see that assignment from Google Classroom. And if I want to know more about that assignment, I can click on it and see when it was due, that type of thing. Going back to English 11, though, I want to go into that curriculum. Here's where those student resources I made available as a teacher fall for our parents to see as well. So if they know if they need to sign a field trip permission slip, or they want to see the schedule or the syllabus, they can access it as well. It's just a very nice area for our parents. They can also see kind of the workflow of this class, what assignments are going to be due upcoming, so they get a nice little date stamp. And that's all set from the due date on those assignments. So parents have visibility into that as well. But we'll go back to our Today screen here, and I'll just navigate there manually, because here's where we have all of those assignments that I scored as well. Now, the student didn't complete that Outlander quick assessment. I did it as a view as a student. So we can see all of those assignments that I actually scored because I move them around in the planner. They're actually not available to see they are available, but they're not due today. So we actually need to go back into the upcoming assignments. And this is where we can see things such as that research paper where I had that scoring assessment. And this is where we're going to see what that teacher left for a comment. And I can actually view that scoring rubric as a parent here and see exactly how my student has performed on that. And if the teacher hadn't corrected it yet, it would just be blank. We can also see those comments down there for that two-way communication. So we always have things at our fingertips. And because it's a single system, it's an integrated system, as soon as that teacher clicks save on scoring an assignment or save on creating a new assignment, we are going to see that immediately in the parent portal. And we've got all of those other assignments here as well. I could certainly drill down into more if you wanted me to, but I think this hopefully kind of gives you a glimpse of what information is going to look like. And maybe there's more specific things you want me to show you in Campus Parent, and I'm happy to do that, but I also want to be respectful of the time of the committee here. So I just, we'll wait for further instruction on that if that's an avenue we want to go down.
Nope, I think we're good. Thank you, Ryan. As a parent, there is one question that I had. So if a student turns something in and it hasn't been graded yet, as a parent, can I see that it's been turned in, but it hasn't been graded? Because that's one of the drawbacks that I'm finding with some of the other systems is that, I see a 0 sitting there, but I'm told that it was turned in, but I can't tell that it's been turned in.
Sure. And so one of the great things, and actually let me sign in as a teacher, because I think this is something I should have showed you there. But that's something that we get all of the time, a question. As a teacher, if I'm collecting assignments and maybe it's not due till tomorrow, but you've turned something in today, I can actually go to that individual assignment. In this case, let's just say it's that research paper, and I can mark that as T for turned in. And
Okay.
what that will do is leave that nice little flag, letting the parent know that, hey, it's been turned in. I haven't scored it yet. So, it'll take it off of that potentially missing status, or just give you the visibility that, hey, my child didn't lie to me. They actually turned it in. It just hasn't been scored yet.
Great.
Yeah. Other questions, other areas I should navigate to?
Does anybody have any questions as a parent or as a teacher, staff member?
Yeah, I have one. I want to know how this integrates with the email system. So one of the features that School Loop has enabled is I can email an entire class, or I can email all my classes. So when I'm looking at this, if I want to send an email to Dylan, he's on the screen here, what does that entail from this pro? Does it link to Gmail, which we do currently? How does that work?
Right. So if I opened up, I need to save and continue because I entered a score. If I open him up, you'll see that I've got his email there. I've set it up so that it's going to open my company Outlook here, which I had closed for the presentation. So it's going to take a second to load that back up. But that's one of the ways that you can do that right there. It's going to pull that email address in there. And if that's the way you're comfortable using it, that's going to continue to function as it is. Otherwise, we do have a built-in email messenger as well. That's going to pull from emails in the system, in the Infinite Campus database.
So I guess that might be a question for Lucas. Would the district just assimilate that into the Gmail system then? Because I have it on my own computer. When I click it, it opens up Outlook, but I'm not interested in obviously using my personal email. Would we do that then at the district level, Lucas?
So I think that is based upon the default email client. That might have to be set at an individual level, but you could set it up to do that, or you could right click on the email and just copy it. The other thing to keep in mind is we are actually currently already loading the students' Google accounts in there. And obviously once they're converted to Gmail accounts, that is the email address that's going to show up. So you could email them directly using Gmail, or you could just copy it and paste it into Gmail if you wanted to. But either way will work.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And that's, as a side note, that is how our students who are currently logging into Infinite Campus, they use single sign-on through the Waffle to enter their course requests.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah,
Kelly, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Linda, and thank you, Ryan. It's a very comprehensive presentation. You covered a lot of material, so I apologize if this was addressed earlier. But going back to close to the beginning where you were talking about as grades are entered into the gradebook and you see the graphical change on the left-hand column, are there different settings in which users are able to set their gradebook instead of it just being vanilla averages? Are you able to use various power laws that place greater importance on more recent assignments, and any sort of customization like that?
Yep. So that's an excellent question. As far as, for traditional base grading, and that means like an A through an F scale, there's going to be different things they can use. When I hear power law, my brain instantly goes to standards based grading. So if you're not talking about standards based grading, I apologize. But so as far as, ways we can calculate grades and standards, you can set up a power law for sure. You can also do, exactly what you mentioned, a decaying average where the most recent assignments way heavier than older assignments. And you can set that up on your own. But there's also mean, average, highest score, teacher discretion scores for all of those. So yeah, we have a robust option as far as grade calculation goes, and that can be set up on the district side, or if districts want teachers to do it, they can do it that way as well.
Thank you very much. That's very reassuring to hear those details.
Good, excellent, thank you. Other questions, other comments? And if it happens a lot where you think of something after the presentation is done, I'm sure you can reach out to Lucas and he'll most likely be able to answer, but if not, he'll always get a hold of us and get an answer back to you.
Vivek, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted, well, I mean, this is perhaps something that I'll follow up with Lucas, but I'd like to understand some of the administrative functions that are available for the site administrators or district to be able to see across the district-wide or school-wide for similar courses.
Yeah, and so Lucas, I'll defer to your judgment how you'd like me to proceed with that one.
Yeah, I think for the scope of tonight, let's not go into that, but I'll definitely follow up with you, Vivek, and we can clarify some of the things you're looking for.
Does,
Right,
the
and
old
then-
school,
I'm
the old
sorry,
school system-
who is this?
sorry, it's Robert.
Oh, okay, Robert.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, the old school system would send emails to parents, I think daily.
Yeah, so there's a number of ways that parents could set up. We can set up scheduled messages to go out. It might be like missing assignment or even just gradebook update messages, or teachers themselves can send out messages through the message center to email parents about special events or upcoming things to keep reminder of. There's built-in templates for grades messages and missing assignment messages. But just to show you really quick what this looks like, we'll just load my field trip permission one here. And if I say that this is gonna, for some reason my computer's giving me the business there with the right hand side, but we can send it out to parents as well for a particular section here. And it's going to load those parents and those guardians, and it'll give us an update. As far as, Donald's Dylan's father, and this is the email address that it's going to go to because that's the one we have on file. So you can set
Right.
those up on schedules. You can send them, in one-off mentality. I don't know precisely.
Before we had daily updates and it would just say what's coming up, it would basically collate, okay, this is happening this week, and so the teacher didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, so Ryan, just real quick, because I am a current parent. So daily, I get an email, basically just with updates. I mean, it's a generic email. It's Susie's update, and Susie's, and it basically gives me her grades for the day, and then I can drill down into each class and see what's going on.
Yeah. So and that's great to know. And what I would say is, different with Infinite Campus is when you install the app on your phone, instead of, an email, you're going to be able to go into your settings here, and you're going to be able to update your own notification settings for, anytime an assignment is scored. So instead of, waiting for day, you're going to get a, if you want it to, you can say anytime an assignment is scored, send me a notification. Or if it's less than 60%, all of those will, those are controllable by you, the parents, and at an individual level. Like, anytime an attendance mark, maybe your son or daughter gets marked absent, if you have that checked, it's going to give you a notification as soon as that update has been, saved by the teacher, letting you know that, much to probably your students' anger, that you're going to know instantly they've been marked. So, instead of an email system, we went with straight up notifications through the app for those types of things. Kind of along those same lines, the Today screen is also going to show you any assignments from any classes that are going to be due for those students, and if they've turned them in as well.
Okay.
I did have one question, and the Infinite has no website capabilities, correct?
Maybe can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, so like currently that's one of the features, and I know Bart's pretty quiet here. We have all of our websites are handled through Schooloop. So it looks to me all the functionality here is great. That would be, but so like each school site has each school has a website, district has a website, teachers have websites.
And that's currently in Schooloop. And sorry, it sounds like Lucas was maybe chiming in there as well.
Oh,
No,
okay.
Ryan, that was just me. I was just going to, this is Ash. Yeah, you're correct. We don't have a website.
Okay. Okay. That, I just wanted to,
yeah.
Thank you.
But that could also be handled with Google as well. So I mean, you could move not move, but the teachers could use Google Sites to generate websites.
Yeah, and I think the key here, I mean, we really just scratched the surface. I mean, we could spend 2 hours on the gradebook and, gradebook setup options and things like that. So this is very high, very, very high level. But I think it was a good overview, Ryan.
No, it was a great overview. Thank you so much for all the work.
For sure. So I will, I'll turn off my presentation mode, but I'm certainly happy to hang out and answer any questions you may have. But just looking at the time, I want to make sure that I be somewhat mindful of the time we were allotted there.
Vivek, do you want to ask that question yourself?
Linda, I'm just trying to document here. We can follow up. These are more administrative.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions regarding functionality and use of go ahead, Dawn?
I just have one question, but first, thank you very much, because that was a lot of information, but the way you did it, it didn't seem like it was so much information, like it didn't feel overwhelmed. So
thank you.
As far as the way the gradebooks are set up, is it, can like one teacher use, so if you have one site, say, can some teachers use the standards based and other teachers use the point system? Like they can all do whichever one, right? I was pretty sure that was the case, but I just wanted to confirm that.
Yep, you're absolutely correct. It all depends on how your individual school level functions, and it's flexible enough to handle however those teach. As long as it's acceptable by the district, it's going to be acceptable at the teacher level for them to do it that way.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Allison.
Yeah, this may have been answered, and I apologize. That was really good and comprehensive. We have a number of messages that need to go out to either the whole school or a whole grade level or something like that we currently use Schooloop for. So it's like a senior announcement for graduating seniors from the principal, and it has information in it, that kind of thing. Is that kind of thing still possible through the system?
Yes, and so it all depends on how you want to handle it, but we have reporting capabilities where you can even just select the students you want to receive a message, or you can, however it works. And then similar to that teacher message, you'll type up your message, you can add an attachment and then just send it out to them. So, that was out of scope for what we were covering tonight, but it's definitely possible.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, Allison. So throughout the whole system, email and inbox messages can be sent out for anything you can really imagine across all of Infinite Campus. There's an extra cost for, what do you guys use, Lucas? Is it Blackboard, if I remember correctly? Maybe it's something different.
We use Bright Arrow for our
Bright Arrow, that's right.
Voice and text communications.
We have that kind of functionality that Bright Arrow has as well. It's the same thing. It's just an extra cost. So, you guys don't use that part. But we have a fully integrated messaging system where, you could go out there and say, give me every kid that doesn't, this is a weird example, but every kid that doesn't have a certain kind of immunization and a certain GPA, and have it send a text message saying this, but it can get pretty advanced.
That's cool. Thank you.
And just to clarify, Allison, the email feature where we could email either the entire district, we could email an entire building, all the families, that is part of what we have. That's part of the core product. So there's no cost for that. It's the messaging system that you saw in the gradebook there. It's the one that is used for attendance letters, which we're working on setting up right now through Messenger. So that is no additional cost. It's the text and the phone call piece that we do not own.
That makes sense. Thank you. I wasn't sure if it was just grade related communication with your own class. So that clears that up. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I don't see any other hands. Ashton and Ryan, thank you so much for your demo.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Ryan.
We appreciate your attending and answering any questions. I'm sure if we have any other questions, we'll go through Lucas and get them answered.
Perfect.
All right,
Thanks,
sounds
guys.
great.
Okay.
Thanks again,
Thank you
guys.
guys. Good night.
Take care.
Have a
Yep,
good
good night.
evening.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, bye.
All right, that was great. Thank you, Lucas, for coordinating that with those guys. Does anybody else have any questions that we don't have Infinite Campus on there, Lucas?
So I guess
So I want, oh,
go ahead, Luke.
Oh.
okay. I was going to share a bit of information before we have our discussion. So obviously one of the reasons that we're looking at this gradebook is because it's integrated with Infinite Campus. I wanted you guys to have an opportunity to see it. The other thing that I wanted to share, we are at a point where we would have to decide what we're going to do with School Loop. The end of our contract, I believe, is June 30th. Currently, I actually did get the breakdown. Currently, for the gradebook piece specifically, we're spending $65,000. So that does not include the website portion. The website portion is its own piece, and we could continue to use School Loop as our district website solution, which I don't, at this point, really see a reason why we would move away from it. But when I looked at the cost of this, and I looked that we're at the end of our contract, that we've obviously been implementing this new system, it seemed pretty logical that we would explore using a gradebook that we currently own anyways. So that's the logistical, logical reason for us exploring what we're doing. And you know, the reality is we would have those funds then to allocate for other tools. So that's the quick explanation.
So I hesitate to put the hat on. I probably do more School Loop work than anybody else in the room here. It appears to me that much of the functionality is being duplicated. This is obviously much better than the gradebook program we had with the whatever the system was, the Illuminate system. So I guess I don't do the website, obviously. Bart does, so that's nice to know we keep there. I guess I'm still a little hazy on the email system, but it sounds like that's a workable situation. So what would be the next step then on our part as a committee to recommend that moving forward, Lucas?
Yeah, so one of the things I was going to bring to the group tonight is if you guys already feel comfortable with the solution that you saw, and there is no doubt this solution is being used very widely. I think in California now it's approximately 1 million students use the Infinite Campus system. And across the country, it's over 8 million, I believe, is the actual number. I think there's only a couple states where the product doesn't reside. So, I mean, the reality is this is a very robust gradebook with really LMS functionality as well. So if the group feels comfortable tonight, giving the nod to making the transition to Infinite Campus Gradebook, I'm definitely all for that. If you feel like we need another month to kind of dwell on it, or if you think we really need another presentation, it might be a little bit challenging to do that before the next TAC meeting. But really by the next TAC meeting, I would need a decision at the absolute latest. Because if we're going to do a new contract, I need to make sure that it would just be for the district website rather than to include the gradebook. And we would also then need to plan for what that would look like for summer school.
Okay.
So, Lucas, I've
wait,
got a question.
Tim, I've got a couple hands up in front of you, please. Allison, you have
Sure.
a hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify with Lucas. I didn't want to ask in front of the reps because it wasn't really their business, but sort of, and you've answered a little bit of this, but what do you envision Infinite Campus replacing? Like, I'm sort of trying to envision this from a teacher side. Like, am I still going to set up my classroom assignments and website and all of that through Google Classroom, but I'm using this instead of School Loop for grading? Like, what are we replacing, if that makes sense?
That's a great question. So I think we have obviously discretion with that. One of the things that I do believe is that the Infinite Campus system has pretty much all of the functionality that Google Classroom has. Now, that's not to say that we would have to do away with Google Classroom. And obviously there's no cost for us to use Google Classroom. Truly, if we wanted to, we could keep that system and we could have it integrate with this system. But from what I've seen, and I've seen the demo a couple times of the Gradebook, and along with the learning management system functionality that it has, I really think that most of our teachers could just use the LMS/Gradebook tool that Infinite Campus offers to accomplish what they want to accomplish. That's just my opinion, but I don't want to force it on you guys, and I don't want you to feel like you're being forced to, make a decision if you're not confident in it. But from what I've seen, it really does have the capabilities that we need.
That makes a lot of sense. Sort of follow-up question, I think it would matter to a lot of teachers. This was along the lines of the questions that I was asking in the chat. I mean, right now we don't get rostered classes until a day or so before school starts. Most teachers are setting up their Google Classrooms and their other online assignments throughout the summer. It would be important to my unit members to know that they can do that throughout the summer, regardless of whether they currently have students rostered to them. A lot of people already have assignments in Google Classroom that they just carry forward and modify for the next year. It would be more appealing, I think, to FUD to members if they knew that they were allowed to keep their Google Classroom if they wanted to, as opposed to being forced to switch to something new that they may not be able to access until they have a roster. So I just was wondering if that would be, Tom is nodding, I think, if that would be an option.
Well,
Yeah.
what I can say
I'd like
is,
to chip in there, Lucas.
Oh, pardon?
I was going to say, I am, I am willing to, I don't use Google Classroom a whole lot, I worked out other things with my students, but regardless, I know that's a huge thing that the students have really jumped on board. From my standpoint, if I was going, I would, probably go there. I'm not saying that you couldn't move them off of Google Classroom, but I think particularly at the secondary level, getting rid of School Loop is going to be one jump. And then perhaps in a year, then you say, hey, look at all these features. I think it might be a bit harsh to do both at the same time. That would be my feeling from a standpoint.
Yeah.
Jump in.
All right, wait, Don, I have Gautam. I'm sorry, Tom kind of jumped in there.
I had
have
my-
Sorry, my apologies.
Gautam's up next, and then Don, you're next.
Okay. Okay, I have a question. I have campus. What do we need to do to maintain the data that you're storing, and how it is exposed to the people? What security implications, and what all we have to do for doing that? And that could involve people from the district to work on it.
Gautam,
Gautam,
the district is already using Infinite Campus. We've already hopped onto Infinite Campus, and the data is already being put into Infinite Campus.
But have you considered the security implications of it? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I believe so, because we're already on the system, and all those have been hashed out. All we're looking at tonight is the gradebook part of it. So all the data and all the kids' data and all that stuff is already within Infinite Campus, and the security issues have been looked at by the IT department.
Okay.
Okay, so does that answer your question?
No, because the reason is, if the parent can the parent see somebody else's? Or is it exposed that way?
No, they as parents can only see our students.
Okay.
We can only see the students that are under our domain. We
Okay.
can't see, I can't see my neighbor's kids. Okay,
Only the teachers
is
can
that
do the
clear?
comparison. Yeah, that's okay.
Only the teachers can see their students.
Um,
Okay, Dawn?
Yeah, I had just a couple quick comments. One is I absolutely agree with Allison and Tom that no one wants to just suddenly say, okay, Google Classroom is going to go away. I think it may organically go away, that teachers use it less and less over time, but no one wants to make that jump. I think we can probably all agree on that. I would like to point out that I have a lot of experience working with teachers and getting emails about technology, and there have been I used to use School Loop when I was in the classroom, and it worked great for me, but when it came to things being more advanced and like integrating with Google Classroom, and I get a lot of emails from really frustrated teachers. So I'm just sharing with you perspective in terms of, what I hear a lot of, and the whole School Loop integration issues has caused frustration just for the integration. It's still a frustration that School Loop's always a day behind the student information system is another frustration. And so I just think that teachers would be very open and excited about this. And I feel like when you look at a gradebook, and about the other teachers in the room, but they're all very similar, right? You're going to create the assignment, you're going to decide when it's going to be posted, if it's worth points or whatever. So there's a certain amount of intuitiveness that comes along with learning a new gradebook. To me, I guarantee you, there are a lot of teachers that would be over the moon to hear that we don't have to deal with those integration. They don't want to have to grade it in one place and then put it into another place, and they feel like they're doing double the work and things like that. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. Real quick, we're coming up on 8:30. Are people okay with this meeting running late? Because we still have 2 items left on the agenda that we still need to discuss, and I'm just curious, are people okay running late, or do we want to table items for next meeting?
Are they time sensitive?
One of them, yeah, the last one is. Actually, both of them are, yes. So I'd say, could we add another 20 minutes to tonight?
That's fine with me.
Do people have it? Anybody have any objection to that? Okay, so if we could move this around. Ellie, you had a question. Do you want to, did your question get answered?
More or less, yes. It centered around continued support for Google Classroom choices,
Okay.
familiarity with existing systems and not bringing on board too many new systems. So I think it was answered based off the last bit of the dialogue.
Vivek, you were next.
Yeah, I just wanted to support what Alison is saying. I see a class being a separate thing, and the rosters will come every year and go, right? So we should look at, so that way it's a continuum that goes on, and teachers preserve the material and add to it as they go along. So we should get feedback whether that is available in the system or not.
Yeah, it at least it seemed to me in Ryan's demo that you could, if you had Google Classroom assignments created, you could add them into your classroom, into your Infinite Campus Gradebook. At least that's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, it almost felt like once you had a roster, you can bring in the stuff, but
right,
without a roster.
Right.
And
Yeah, my question, Linda, was a little bit different. It's not so much. So let's say I, was a teacher and I've gone through Dawn's transition period and I've become comfortable not using Google Classroom anymore, and now I'm just using Infinite Campus. My question was more, do I have access to add and update assignments
I see what
over
you're
the
saying,
summer
yeah.
before I have, because currently I can't do anything with School Loop until I have rostered students. So
Right.
it would have to be different from that.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand. And Vivek had a good point that, you know, a classroom is a classroom, a roster is a roster. You add a roster to a classroom. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question to go back to Infinite Campus with. You know, because I don't think they were quite understanding where you were coming from. But I think, you know, Vivek's analogy there, not analogy, but compartmentizing everything. So, Lucas?
Yeah, one thing I did want to follow up on, they did show a little bit of the standards-based grading tonight, but what I will share is that at this point, we haven't had any discussion specifically around moving away from DNA for our standards-based grading. And I don't see us pushing that unless there was like a real incentive to do it right now. And I will just piggyback on what Ellie stated about trying to do too many things at one time. So unless there was like a whole bunch of people pushing the IT department towards doing the standards-based gradebook with Infinite Campus for this coming year, that would be an area where I would say we could hold off on and make the transition to the secondary gradebook. And then obviously, you know, the following summer, we'd be a lot more familiar with Infinite Campus. And if we wanted to evaluate at that time, we certainly could.
All right, sounds good. Anybody else have any questions, comments regarding the Infinite Campus gradebook? Do people feel comfortable making a decision tonight, or do we want to, Allison, did you have something?
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to sort of reiterate verbally something that I said in the chat, which is that like time when this transition happens is vital. In the past, we've had sort of a history in this district. I'm thinking about school wires and whatever the predecessor of school wires was. There was a tree on the logo. Some of you have been around long enough to remember that. But the Tom's laughing. These introductions of these new systems tend to happen in September, October, November, which is laughably late for teachers when they're starting a new system. You could introduce a new gradebook system in August because we aren't doing any of that over the summer, but anything else like spring introduction is better, as early as possible is better. And I just sort of wanted to reiterate that it would be different if you're looking at a fall introduction if you don't expect me to use it for anything but grading. If I can still use Google Classroom and I can prep over the summer and you're only expecting me to use it for my gradebook, then I can come to a PD in August and learn how to do that. But I just kind of wanted to reiterate that the timeline being important. People have no idea how early teachers prep for their classes.
I just want to make sure, and maybe Don or Allison can answer this, because it was clear to me that you could continue to grade in your Google Classroom and those grades would then move over, correct? You could pull those over. And I think that, like I said, I mean, I think that is just crucial for the teachers. They will actually look at this as a positive, as long as we say, you know, as soon as possible, hey, we found, you know, School Loop wasn't working. We found an integrated alternative. It's going to work great with your Google Classroom. As Don said, I think people may begin to migrate over as they say, well, gee, I don't have to use Google because it has all these capabilities. I just want to, I think that's
a good point, Tom. And I did ask Ashton that in the chat, and he said it actually is much better at the Google integration than School Loop is. So if that's the case, if I can just start the year like I started this year and maybe adopt this new thing if I want to, that's fantastic.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, do people feel comfortable making a decision tonight, or do we want to sleep on it for a month? And were there any questions that were vital that we needed to go back to Infinite Campus on that would sway your decision, to do this, support the transition. Anybody?
I guess I have a question. I'm not thinking of, I mean, I'm prepared to make a motion. I guess my question would be, if we want to guarantee success with and good feelings, is there benefit to reaching out to our constituencies to see if there's questions that need to be answered by next month? Does that, or is that outweighed by the we've made a decision as soon as possible kind of thing? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does, but I'm not sure how to answer that.
Yeah, no, I know.
I think the concern is that as soon as you, I hear what you're saying, Tom, that, you know, I think that, you know, I think there are just so many factors that this just makes sense. And in terms of timing, you know, I think that it, you know, I don't know how we would really go about trying to get consensus anyway, especially in the world we're living in where we're on Zoom meetings. And I think it would be a hard task to accomplish in the time that we're talking about, would be my concern with trying to figure out how to do that. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. Yeah, no, I totally, and like I said, I think that just looking at it from our president, it was a great presentation. It fulfills all the needs. And I will say that more than anybody, I got the emails, teachers upset about it really wasn't integration, it was a lack of integration between Google and Schooloop. And there is no integration necessary. It's the same program. So I think that's a huge selling point. And I think that'll be a positive for the teachers. So I guess, do we want to make a motion then at this point? Is that what we need? Or
I do have a couple hands up. So
right,
let me, Ann, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Linda. If this is obviously a much more teacher-driven decision, my concern is for classified employees who would need to support this transition, whether or not we have enough, whether or not we will have training, and how we will support our classified workers' workload.
All right. Lucas?
Yeah, so Anne, to answer your question, you know, I think anytime there's a transition, there's going to be a learning curve. I think from my experience, a gradebook, the learning curve is that gradebooks are gradebooks. Now, one of the things we saw tonight is that Infinite Campus's gradebook has a lot of fancy features. That doesn't mean that every teacher is necessarily going to use those fancy features. What I can tell you from my experience with this gradebook and other gradebooks is that if all you want to do is use the basic features of it, you can. But I think the more you use it, and because teachers are so familiar with gradebooks, they're going to say, well, how can I do this? And they're going to hear their teacher next door is doing this, and they're going to be, oh, how did you do that? I remember that from the training, but I don't recall how to make that happen. From the office's perspective, I don't necessarily know that there's going to be a ton of support that's going to be needed from there. But one of the things obviously to be aware of is that scheduling, as soon as that scheduling happens and as soon as the office makes changes, the teachers are going to see those immediately. So if a secretary goes in and updates for a family, instantly that is available for the teacher to have access to. So that's going to be one of the differences, is there may be more urgency around some of the changes that occur because a teacher is like, oh, I know if the office does this, I can have access to that information immediately. One of the things that will save the office a lot of time is a system that we already have in place where student email addresses are already automatically being loaded through our identity automation system. And that is also what the students use to log in. The same thing is true for our staff members. So the email address for staff members is automatically loaded in there, and then they can do single sign-on using Google. So some of those pieces, because we're using a fully integrated system, the data division doesn't even have to do that integration, which is huge. So when we talk about the time sensitivity, Allison did put that in the comment there. When we talk about time sensitivity, if we don't make a decision tonight, it's probably not the end of the world, but I think we absolutely would have to make a decision by the beginning of May at our next TAC meeting. The reality is I can't wait too long because I have to start putting contracts together for the following year. And we also need to start putting professional development plans together. The other thing I will state, when we talk about the integration for Schooloop, the integration for Schooloop with Illuminate system was very unique and custom, and it took quite a while for that to be put together. What I can tell you is Schooloop told us that there was an integration model with Infinite Campus, and they provided that model to us, and no one at Infinite Campus had ever heard of it. And we have been unable to find a district that has been able to get grades to transfer from Schooloop directly to Infinite Campus. So the longer we wait, if ultimately we were to decide to say we're going to stay with Schooloop, that means that the data division is going to have to work very hard with Schooloop to come up with an integration model that will work.
Coming.
All right. Bart, did you have anything? You had your hand up and it's down. Okay. Vivek, did you have a question?
I think my hand was up from last time.
Okay. Allison?
I'm sorry. Sometimes it takes me a second to find the unmute thing. I might have missed this in the presentation, but it occurred to me that one of the things that is important with Google is being able to to upload a variety of files and have students download them in terms of, PowerPoints, videos, yada, yada, whatever, and having Google has pretty large storage requirements. Do we know anything about that for this system?
So because I don't know if you remember that, one of the things that they showed is that there is actually Google Drive integration. So if
Okay,
you
it wouldn't matter then.
Right, exactly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm good then. And you answered my other question, which is why I actually had my hand up. Thanks.
All right. Anything else? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion. And I'm going to preface it with, it doesn't seem like there's really any value in waiting, because if the concerns are more about Google Classroom, we still have Google Classroom and it doesn't have to go away. So I move that we support discontinuing the contract with Schooloop and transitioning to the Infinite Campus Gradebook.
Do I have a second?
I'm sorry, can I clarify about the websites? Does that mean that we would continue to have them through Schooloop? Tom, you're thinking the same thing.
What she said. We discontinue our contract with the Schooloop Gradebook and transition to using the Infinite Campus Gradebook. Thank you, Allison.
No worries, cool.
Does that mean you're seconding me?
Yeah, are you going to second it, Allison?
I wouldn't go that far.
Do I have a second?
Is Bart still here? Bart, what do you think? Is this going to work?
I'll second it. Fine.
Thank you, Bart.
Yep.
All right. Any discussion?
Teacher to second it, but I still feel comfortable with the direction.
No, Bart, I was asking because you manage the website. If you feel like it's okay, it's probably okay.
Yep.
Any discussion?
The website side is fine.
And just to clarify, this is a two-pronged motion here, which is one, to support further investigation of IC Gradebook and to also move further away from Schooloop, or?
No, the motion is.
The motion is to because our contract ends with Schooloop in June. So to discontinue our school loop gradebook contract and transition to a gradebook we already have available to us in Infinite Campus.
Thank you, Don.
All right, I have a second. Any discussion, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion that Don put forward, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
I'm sorry.
right.
I'm gonna Allison. I'm gonna go ahead and abstain. I don't have enough input from my colleagues that use School Loop.
Okay, so we have one abstention. Allison abstained. All right. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Abstention here from Juan.
Juan, so we have two abstentions, one from Juan and one from Allison. All right, so the motion passes. So we can, Lucas, I guess, move forward with, I don't know, does this need to go before the board, or is that something you can?
Yeah.
All right.
This doesn't have to go before the board. It's just a decision to change from one product to another.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to our, Lucas, our district Chromebook purchase.
Yeah, I'll keep this quick and short here. Recently at an LCAC meeting, there was funds that were approved for the purchase of nearly 3,000 Chromebooks. We've gone through and received a bid from Dell for our standard Chromebook model, which is the 3100. And it's a master state contract. So the pricing is very, very good. And we've actually, and we always do this, we typically negotiate prices that are lower than the actual state contract. But I just wanted to let the Technology Advisory Committee know that we're doing that. I'm also working to identify at least some funds out of the technology budget before our purchasing cycle ends here at the end of the week to purchase some Chromebooks. It won't be a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but part of the big push for this, if you've been attending or watching the LCAC meetings, is next September, we're going to have 10,000 Chromebooks of ours that will be end of lifing out of our 25,000. So we know that there's going to be an impact, and we know, of course, that there's a need to replace as many of those as we can. I think, the district's going to continue to look for some funds, and we're going to, pull every dollar that we can find. But I think the LCAP funding is a really good source to replace nearly 3,000 of them. It's just under 3,000 is what we're looking at. So I'm going to be bringing that to the board at the next board meeting 2 Wednesdays from now. And so the only thing I'm really looking for from the Technology Advisory Committee tonight is just ongoing support for the purchase of Chromebooks for the purpose of supporting student learning and student assessments. And the only reason I'm requesting this is because this is the type of information that we typically would put in the actual board agenda item itself.
Okay, so do you want a motion, Lucas, or?
We'll see if there's any questions.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions regarding the purchase of 3,000 Chromebooks with LCAP funding? Allison?
Yeah, I just sort of wanted to say something for the record. It's not Lucas's fault because he's new, but it's frustrating to me that my colleague Henry Fung brought this up to TAC over a year ago, that we were going to have such a huge percentage of our Chromebooks that were reaching their end of life, and was told by the previous CTO that, well, it's not like they become paperweights, was his exact phrase at that point. They're still useful. Doesn't matter if Google's not updating them. The issue was that was the only machine that was available on the district website, even though a newer Chromebook of the same type was available. And the schools were trying to order the newer one and were being told no by purchasing. And so my school, for example, ordered hundreds of these Chromebooks that are now becoming outdated because we were told that we couldn't order something newer. And And it's a little bit frustrating to me that we're now facing the situation where we have to deal with that because we were told that we didn't have permission to purchase something existing that was newer. And so just as we sort of look at this issue going forward, I would just like to advocate for the permission, or I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for schools to purchase the newest version of the same machine. I totally, the argument that we always get was, well, IT can't support a million different devices. We need to have standardization. And I totally get that. But if there's a newer version of the exact same machine that just came out that Google is still supporting, and we're told no just because it's not on the district website, I have a very hard time with that. And so I just sort of wanted that to be in the minutes somewhere and for people to hear that, because it's deeply frustrating to me.
All right. Ellie?
That does sound like a frustrating issue. As just a counterpoint from having ordered various Chromebook models over the last 3 years, anytime that the IT department has gotten me a quote, it's been for a device that is completely appropriate and at a good point in its life expectancy, I think, in terms of it being reached out. So I just wanted to offer a counterpoint that I've not myself experienced that particular frustration, but nonetheless, I will make sure that it gets recorded in the minutes.
Thank you. Vivek?
So I actually, really, Alison answered part of my question. So if you are retiring 10,000 and buying 3,000, so how are we filling the gap?
Lucas?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Vivek. You know, there is, from what I can see, there isn't a way to fill that gap for the additional devices that we would be short. I wish I had a good answer for you, but I don't.
So maybe my question is slightly different. What is the impact of having that shortfall?
Right. So the impact, I think, is not going to be that we won't be able to do state assessments, but I think that the real impact, because there will be enough Chromebooks for that, but I think the real impact is going to be the things that don't necessarily happen on a day-to-day basis in the classrooms because there aren't as many devices as there were before. To me, that's going to be the real impact. And I think the teachers who try and use these devices on a day-to-day basis are going to be the ones that are affected most. I mean, that's the reality. I've shared before that the districts that I've come from are one-to-one, meaning every single student in the district has some type of device, whether it be a Chromebook or an iPad. And my experience is there's no substitute for that. But we have our financial realities that we are in. Our job is to innovate within the constraints that we have.
Okay.
Yeah. I did, since I'm talking, I did want to also share that the devices that we are ordering are our current model. And I also spent 2 weeks using one of them for all of my meetings, and it worked great. So the Dell 3100 is actually, for the specifications on it and the price point, is pretty phenomenal device. Again, granted, I was using a brand new Dell 3100, but still I was able to use it for every single meeting, and I wanted to use it because I wanted to see, well, how well does this perform? And it did a great job for me.
All right, so we still have quite a bit of conversation going on, and it's 10 to 9. Do we want to move forward here? We still do have one more item that we do need to talk about before we close this meeting. So I don't know how people are feeling about extending it another. It depends on how much more conversation we have on the Chromebook purchases.
Lucas, it was Lucas needing a motion on that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he wants to get our thought or our okay with the purchase.
So I realized that I just couldn't remember what the.
So yeah, so we need a motion. Real quick, the people that have their hands up, Tom, Ellie, and Ann,
I just
real
had a
quick
question.
comments.
Well, I just had a question. How are these, do we have a protocol for distribution? How are these being allocated across the district? That was my question.
I don't have the exact distribution model. I think the LCAP committee may also have a say in that. I know from the IT perspective, we will be coordinating with instructional services on the priority of distributing those. The other thing is I would say is we do have a breakdown of the number of devices by school that are going to be end of life. And so that may also have some influence if we have a school that's losing like, over 50% of their devices or something unusual, we would probably prioritize that school with their needs.
Okay. Thank you.
Anne?
I can see that we need to move on, but I'd like to see conversation about this on a future agenda, please.
So conversation about the end of life,
as
replacing
Tom
end of
brought
life.
up, distribution, how we're filling the gap, because there are things in place. Lucas's challenge is the purchasing deadline is April 15th.
Right.
So he really needs that done, but we need to talk about Chromebooks and end of life and changing instructional practice at a future meeting.
Okay, I'll put that on future agenda items. Sound good?
So it's safe to say that
All right.
the books are not going to go to waste, right? So we could make
Right.
a motion to approve
the purchase.
Whatever Lucas's numbers were.
Approve and support the purchase of 3,000, roughly 3,000 Chromebooks.
That's exactly what I move.
Does anybody want to exactly second that?
Just to be clear, Lucas, you said a minute ago, those are current Chromebooks that have not reached their AUE yet, correct?
That is correct. The 3100 is a current model that is not going to be done away with this year.
In that case, I would second that.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving the purchase of approximately 3,000 Chromebook Dell 3100s, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I have to abstain as I also sit on the LCAP committee, which is why I was late tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Anne.
Mhm.
All right. So motion passes with one abstention. And our final topic of new business tonight is technology support for intra-district classes for students. Lucas, do you want to take
Sure.
that one?
Yep, I can start us off here. So yeah, this topic was, it's been on the future agenda items for a while from Trustee Vivek. So I appreciate you, appreciate your patience as we got this on the agenda tonight. One of the things I just want to begin by sharing is obviously tonight we'll be focusing on the technology aspect of this. To actually do the model that we're talking about here from a practical perspective would require negotiation, possibly even some changing of board policy. But the concept that was brought forward, I believe by Trustee Vivek, is that there may be some classes where if a particular school doesn't offer that and another school does, we could use technology to teach those courses. So from a very practical perspective, we really already have a lot of those technologies available to us depending upon the instructional model that we would use. If we wanted to change that model and really do like a full video conferencing system, we would probably need to do some additional research to figure out what the best solution would be. There are some schools throughout the country and even in California that have purchased pan-tilt Zoom systems with lapel mics. And those are great solutions for distance learning, for hybrid learning. So the good thing is with this, we really don't have to reinvent the wheel at all. So that's my quick introduction for that topic.
All right. Any discussion? Allison? Actually, Tom, did you have your hand up or did you just leave it up?
Sorry, that was from the last.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm not clear what we're looking at, so I guess I'll just let it go until something is clear in my mind what we're
Okay.
looking at.
Allison?
Yeah, and I missed the meeting 2 meetings ago where I believe this was first brought up. It might have been 3 meetings, so I might be missing some context, but I just have a lot of questions about how this would work. For example, I have a friend who teaches intro to engineering design and robotics and a bunch of other classes that are not offered at every single school, but they're very hands-on. And this person has been doing a brilliant job during distance learning, but they do feel like the learning experience is inferior to what they're able to offer in person in their makerspace with all of their equipment and all of this stuff that they're able to offer in person. And they certainly wouldn't want to be forced into offering Zoom classes because they're the only teacher that offers that particular thing in the district, and 8,000 students from different schools want to sign up for it. And so I don't, logistically, I don't see how this works, but it might just be because I missed that meeting.
Maybe I can answer because this came as an ask from my side. So yeah, I mean, I can see hands-on classes, and if you want to get somebody into band, for example, that's not going to happen cross campus very easily. But there may be things like, let's say, Physics C, AP Physics C, that is not offered at every campus. And this can be fairly easily taught across campuses. So we'll have to pilot this. And I think there's a technology aspect of it. There's also logistical aspects as to where does the student go to attend this, if this is via some kind of a concurrent learning, right? So there's technology and logistics that need to be considered, and the technology aspect of it was what this committee is looking at, to say if we go for a regular curricular type classroom where you don't have a lab or you don't have robotics type hands-on work, then can we start with that, right? And what type of technology is needed in the classroom?
Thank you. I think most of the questions that I have are for other elements besides technology in that case.
So I asked in the chat, what is the goal here? Is the idea for us to just offer our opinions and advisory role, or are we just being shared out that that's a thought? What are we trying to accomplish, I guess is my question.
The goal from my side, and I mean, I'm not a voting member here, right? The goal for me was to have an assessment of, in the classroom, would we need to invest in something to make this happen? Okay. And what Lucas is saying is that when the classrooms are set, unless we want to go for some very exotic equipment, the classroom should be okay now. Now, the next step would be the logistics part of it.
Go ahead, Allison.
I would just have to strongly disagree with that. We were, this is part of the reason I think why we had so much difficulty with the secondary negotiations over reopening, that if you imagine a very old school classroom where the teacher is standing at a podium and lecturing to a class of stationary students, and the teacher is stationary and the students are stationary, then you could just stick a laptop in front of them and it would work fine. That is not at all what classrooms look like nowadays, as you all know, of course, right? There's group work and there's students moving around the room and there's the teacher moving around the room and there's a variety of things that are happening. And so, you know, as a teacher, I don't know anybody who was able to envision how they were going to do concurrent hybrid and at home distance teaching, you know, when that was something that was being discussed. You know, there were all kinds of conversations happening among teachers like, okay, so I take my laptop and I face it towards me, and then I have another laptop facing towards my classroom, and then I project my Zoom kids on the board, and so then they can talk to each other, but then there's not enough microphones for them to hear each other. And so we do not have the capability to do any kind of classroom physics or not in this format at this time, would be my position on that.
Yeah.
And Alison, and that's why I was hoping we did a few of those in this semester, so we could pilot, we could experience, we learn from this and sharpen our skills. Anyway, but that's all water under the bridge. Now you're bringing up a good point, and Lucas, with that type of a premise, what is your assessment still good that what Alison is saying with teachers moving around, will the technology still hold?
I guess I need
Tom,
to chime in.
Tom, can we let Lucas answer Vivek's question,
Oh,
then
I'm
you'll
sorry,
be
yeah.
next?
Yeah, go. Thanks.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I think to answer the question, so when I say we have the technology to do some of this, it's really what Allison was sharing is if you're going to be sitting in front of a webcam or a laptop, we have the technology to do that. But if we're talking about something where the teacher is going to be able to move around, what you're talking about then is similar technologies to what you'll find in modern conference rooms or in a boardroom, for example, where the cameras actually are designed to follow sound and movement. And those systems, of course, do tend to be pretty expensive. The committee members who are here, I think almost everybody had probably heard me talk about this a little bit as we went into distance learning. Dublin Unified had looked at doing this for all of their classrooms, and the cost for their classrooms, and they have less than half that we have, I believe was going to be $1.6 or $1.8 million to outfit their classrooms. So for us to do 2,000 classrooms, I had estimated roughly $5 million.
But if we were to say there are 50 courses that are shared, and we want to upgrade 50 classrooms, then it's not 5 minutes. So,
right.
Anyway, so what the conclusion I'm getting to is that we'll have to upgrade the classrooms because we don't want to make it distance learning in person as well. Right? So Alison's point is valid here.
Tom?
Yeah, I think that Allison raises the good point. I mean, in a sense, if you want to offer a TED Talk, we have the technology, right? You can set up a screen, set up a thing, and Tom Burbeck can stand up, like in the old days, be the center of the stage and lecture for 5 days, or when I was lecture for 4 days and you get a test on Friday, right? That was the old school. The reality is that in some ways, this is what we've turned back into, unfortunately, with this whole Zoom thing. It's very hard, even with breakout rooms and things like that. So, I mean, from a technology standpoint, I think we need to, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. It's just like, do you need a Chromebook? It's what does this classroom look like? As Allison put it, if you're teaching robotics, it's only offered at Washington. Is the reality a teacher at Washington able to teach robotics to 5 students over at Irvington? Is that a reality for that classroom? If it's if it's intervention classroom for reading, I mean, there's only 3 students at Horner that need that. Can you truly service those kids by them sitting in front of a Chromebook while Tom Burbeck is doing that intervention classroom over at Centerville? So I think the model needs to be addressed of instruction before we chime in what the technology needs are, right?
No,
Tom,
it makes sense. Now, what I'm trying to, we can always find counterexamples where this won't work. But let's find examples where it will work, and then let's figure out how to make it work. So from a technology perspective, then the whole bargaining and all that and the logistics will apply. How are universities making this happen today? I mean, my son goes to med school and they are doing this, right? I mean, half the students are in class, half are here. So there are examples where this is happening, and the same subgroups, everything is happening, and the technology is there. I just wanted this team to also try to start figuring this out, so that when we actually want to roll this out, we are not scratching our heads saying we are not ready for the next year.
Ellie?
And please stop me if my comments are off point here, but I just wanted to acknowledge the complexity of the topic. I think just on one hand, anytime we have a discussion about providing or maximizing the opportunities for any student within the city of Fremont, that's a good conversation to be in. While at the same time, it's very difficult to differentiate between the different considerations that need to go into them. And of course, there are technological issues that we need to investigate, while at the same time, I don't know necessarily what that means to have students from multiple campuses enrolled in a particular teacher's classroom. Every individual educator has a right to have a single evaluating administrator. Well, what does that mean? But again, all of those considerations are separate from technological issues, but it is difficult to separate the different topics of the conversation.
Bart?
I think keeping on the technology side, because that's our role, we have to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our students on a technology side right now. And so if we get too advanced with shifting and having different campuses and things like that, and we hear that we're not going to have enough Chromebooks in a year, I think we need to make sure we just keep the focused thing that we're doing well, keep that moving forward. I like the idea of providing more to all of our students, but in the model that we have right now, we have to make sure we're at least doing the best we can with what we're given. So I just want to keep that ahead.
Thank you, Bart. Dawn?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, and it kind of goes along with what Bart was saying, is from a technology standpoint, everything that I had been researching over these last year, trying to be prepared as an instructional coach of how to help teachers return to school with hybrid. The functionality wise, the stuff that Lucas mentioned is key, that really a conference room type of equipment and the cameras that follow you. But kind of piggybacking on what Ellie said is, what we don't want to do is figure out what equipment we need and then just try to give it to people. It's kind of like the emergency distance learning that we did, right? There was no training for teachers. So even if you had the right equipment, how to appropriately use it. So I think we have to kind of keep in mind the depth of these layers of, it is important to establish like what kind of technology would be needed, but we don't want to take that information and go, okay, we have this figured out. I just really want to advocate for the importance of if this continued down this path, and you would need teachers to be trained, and you would need to probably even go visit schools that are doing it or something, but really lofty goal, and that would take quite a while to do it. And so I just wanted to throw out those points because I think they're worth realizing.
Okay, Ellie?
I like the point that Don made with it being a good idea to see what other districts that are grappling with similar questions are using. Which district you said was contemplating doing X, Y, and Z, but even looking to see what particular products or devices they're using and things that they've found successful or challenges that they've had would be good information to have.
So,
Go ahead, Vivek. Yep.
I just want to respond quickly, right? I know we have time. So if I look at in my corporate world, right, I have conference rooms that have a $50 webcam, have $100,000 worth of equipment, right? So when we are trying to set up a particular type of meeting, we choose the technology that will fit my requirement. And the logistics of how to make that meeting work is 10 times more complex than deciding what technology we need or what set of technologies we need. So this is kind of the stepping stone to having that type of a discussion. And that's why I've been insisting to start at least a technology conversation so that the next set of conversations can happen. And to Bart's point, yes, we want to focus on what we are doing today. And like what Don said, if we cannot see what comes a year from now, then we'll never be there. So we have to stay in the present and do the best job there. But we also have to look at where are we aiming to go. If there are no goals, no lofty goals, we'll never get to the next level of excellence. So that's why my push to start taking baby steps to understand how this will be. And like Ellie said, we should do classroom visits, figure out what others are doing. I mean, we don't want to reinvent the wheel here. But what Lucas said with the tracking cameras and a few microphones in the classroom, that puts us in the kind of the high end of what a more exotic conference room looks like, and should be able to support all kinds of motion and movement and that are not stationary. So let's continue this discussion. But I don't want to stop just because this is not a today problem or even a next month problem. We should continue to pursue these topics.
Yeah, and I think it is baby steps. It's not a huge leap into converting the entire district over to this. It's maybe start with a classroom, and maybe not every classroom needs to be the same, right? I mean, you may need different technologies to do different things in your classroom. If one classroom does it one way, it's baby steps. And I mean, I think the thing that we're having a struggle with now is just funding, right? It's where is the money going to come to do this, especially within the next couple of years where we're in a budget crunch, right? I mean, we really I think we have these goals and try to work towards them, but in small increments, not in a huge leap to try and get it done all at once. We've got to, as you said, pilot it in a summer school, a classroom in summer school. But, you have to look at it from all the different angles, from the different, because everybody has different teaching styles as well.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, we're not going to have perfect answers here, right? Without.
Right, exactly. And I mean, it's nice to have the discussion and, maybe to try to look at setting some goals or some aspirations.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Anything else? Lucas, do you have a CTO update?
I'll give one quick CTO update. I'm hoping to bring the bylaws change to the school board at this next meeting. I know that they have a jam-packed agenda, but I should know by tomorrow if it's going to go to the board at this next meeting. That's it.
Great. All right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I will get the Chromebook end of life and distribution stuff for future agenda item on the list. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything? I know it was a long night, but thank you so much.
Can I just shout out Ellie real quick? I just want to really appreciate your just doing an outstanding job on the minutes and just really phenomenal. I'm just really appreciating how thorough and well written and really does a great job of documenting really what's happening in these meetings. I just wanted to thank you.
I very much appreciate hearing that. I will be honest and say that this particular meeting has provided its own unique challenges to meet that same standard, but I will do my best.
Seriously, thank you.
All right. Yes. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody. Actually, it has been a challenging year having to do these over video and stuff, but I'm happy to have worked with everybody this past school year, and I hope to continue to work with you guys. So anyways, so our next meeting will be May 3rd. probably same time, same channel. And I will see you all next month. Meeting adjourned. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.